YouTube. You can do it. Oh, yeah. And, of course. Oh, and it's just another Saturday night, and I ain't got nobody. I got some money 'cause I just got paid. I know that it's not Saturday night. So what would you do? Whoa, whoa. There we go. All right, we're getting there, everybody. Things are coming together. Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome on in. I am very glad that you are here with me tonight, where we will be continuing our live read of Bigfoot Found by Tim D. Smith. Now, I know that there is a chance that you missed when we started this stream. And I don't mean the stream today, I mean you missed when we started reading this book on Saturday. That is a chance. That is probably nearly a given for some people. You may be discovering my stream for the first time. And if you are, hello everyone. Welcome on in. My name is Tim Maloney. I am a professional narrator. I do a lot of live reading, primarily for indie authors, but I have done some other things as well. I am an author. I am a father. 3 kids, pretty much all adults at this point. But that is a little bit about who I am. And I do these live readings for you, the viewer, the listener, as well as for the indie author. Because, well, being an independent author is a hard thing. Why is it hard, you ask? You're independent. You are beholden to nobody. You're right. However, an independent author also has the support of nobody. They are the author. They are the editor. They are the proofreader. They are the artist. They are the publisher. They are the marketer. They are the accountant. They are the everything. And because they are the everything, it becomes difficult sometimes to do the job that they do. I am a professional narrator. Yes, I do have audiobooks out there under my name. I am professional. And because I am professional, I can always use more practice. Who couldn't? Who is just so good at their job that they're like, nah, bro, I got this. I get the opportunity to practice my craft at the same time as providing marketing to our indie authors and providing you with a fantastic listen of a decent, good, great, outstanding book, whatever the case happens to be. So, it's a win for everybody involved. Now, as a part of that, I record all of the chapters that I read, and I post them to my YouTube channel. Once again, if you have not ventured out there, youtube.com/@SirArminius. That is where you can find me. If you haven't stopped out there and given it a sub yet, hey, would ya? Do you think you could? It's free, and it helps me to continue to do what I do and helps to support me in my mission to support the indie authors. And because I record them, it does mean that I am not able to engage with you during the active chapter read. However, this is a live format. What kind of live format would have zero audience participation? So, in between chapters, I am happy to answer questions that you have. We can talk about something that just happened in a previous chapter. I am not the author, but I am happy to give you my thoughts and opinions. You can ask me about being a voice actor. I have helped steer a couple of people in that direction. You can ask me what it's like to be an author. I have a published short story in an anthology, and I am actively looking for an agent now for my book. Ask away. Ask whatever you would like to ask. I am here for you. But the primary reason that we are here is to read the book. So, once again, feel free to use the chat, whatever channel you happen to be in. The primary one that I look at as the stream goes on is my YouTube. I have 2 different streams up on YouTube. I have it in portrait, if you happen to be on your phone. I have it in landscape, if you happen to be at your computer. It's all there for you. I am here to take care of you. So, ask away. Stop by the YouTube channel, or ask on whatever platform you happen to be on, and I will be happy to answer your questions. But now, it's time for you to sit back, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into our second reading session of Bigfoot Found by Tim D. Smith. Tim and Tim, no relation, but all things by Tims are good. And we're going to start tonight's reading with Chapter 8. Don Tinker, Monroe County Sheriff for the last 12 years. Don't tinker with a good thing. Re-elect Don Tinker was sitting behind his desk, phone to his ear and leaning back with his feet propped up, when Gable and Rink were shown into his office. Without speaking, he motioned with his hand for them to sit as he continued his conversation. On the walls were certificates and pictures of him with various people who must have been influential in the small circle of East Tennessee and the county he was charged with protecting and serving. He was handsome in an older, gentlemanly way, with short, graying hair and dimpled cheeks. "I promise you I will look into it," he said. "You too. Goodbye." He shook his head and raised his small eyebrows as he put the phone in its cradle. "I'm Sheriff Tinker," he said, pulling back his feet and rising taller than he appeared sitting. "Hi, Gable Marks, and this is Rena Leslie," Gable said, offering his hand. "Call me Rink." "Nice to meet you guys. I've seen the show." "I hope you like it," Gable said with a goofy sort of grin. "I do. One of my favorites. You've been in a police setting, I'm sure, being a lawyer and all," Tinker offered. The comment seemed to make Gable nervous. "I like research infinitely better." Tinker sat once more, as did the researchers. "So, you're investigating Bigfoot here in Monroe County. That's exciting. I'm certain you'll have quite a following. We don't always have celebrities in our midst. They shot a movie in Tellico once upon a time, but it's been a while." "A movie? Really?" Gable said. Yeah, The Curse. David Keith, I think. Sorta produced it. Had Will Wheaton in it. He was big at the time. Not a very good flick, if I remember correctly. I was on patrol at the time, so things are a bit foggy. He smiled. The conversation sat, so Tinker pressed on. What would you need from the sheriff's department? Our website received information of a sighting or two. We're trying to get more information. Have you had sightings that you're aware of or could share with us? Sightings? Yes, we have. How many, recently? Gable asked. At least 8, Tinker said. Gable looked at Rink and nodded his head as if he was pleased. 8 sightings in the last month or two is great. No, today. Wait, today? Today? You've got to be kidding, Gable said. No, I'm not. I think people have gotten advance notice of you being here. I wouldn't put too much stock in it. So, you think the locals might be making up some of them? You'll have to make of those what you will. I couldn't say, Tinker replied, smiling. He was a politician, after all. What do the officers say about all the sightings? I would guess they have to respond. That's sort of the thing. We have a really large area to patrol. We're the largest county in Tennessee. Lots of rural areas. Takes up a lot of time. They're understaffed as it is. But they haven't seen Bigfoot, Gable said. Instead of answering immediately as he had been, Tinker paused, as if he might be choosing his words. Maybe you can speak with some of them, and they can offer their own opinions. We haven't seen one answering a Bigfoot call. No. Rink's brow was furrowed, and she appeared to be listening with all her faculties. Leaned forward now, her hands steepling as her elbows rested on her knees. Do you believe he's here, though? Rink asked. In Monroe County, Tennessee? Another pause. If he votes for Don Tinker and pays his taxes, I'll do my best to keep him safe, he said, and laughed big and loud. Gable and Rink joined him in chuckles. The tension was thick, though. Listen, he continued. I'll help you any way I can. Just be safe and be careful. Let people know if you're going to be on their land. I don't want anyone thinking you is a Bigfoot, like, what's his name? Robo. Yes, Robo, our resident Bigfoot. Yeah, Robo. I like that guy. You folks let me know if you need anything. Tinker rose and wrote on the back of a business card which he offered to Gable. My cell is on there. He offered his hand once more, and the investigators departed for their rental van. You drive, Gable said as he tossed the keys to Rink. It's hot. I'm wiped. Are you all right? She asked as she circled to the driver's side. You looked like you saw a ghost. Gable didn't say anything else, and when he climbed into the passenger seat, he pulled his hat over his eyes and leaned back. It's not like him, Rink thought. Still, that must be the reason. They drove to the Sweetwater Hotel and Convention Center. All right, what do you guys think? Will there be a Bigfoot? Will they find one? Ah, Gable. People don't like Gable so very much. He gets on everyone's nerves. And hello out there to everybody, whether you are on Rumble, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Kick, X, wherever you happen to be. Glad to have you guys here with us. As a reminder, I am recording these, but you are welcome to put your thoughts and comments up on any of the chats that you happen to be on, and I will be happy to answer them in between chapters. I am always happy to help you out, answer the questions. Once again, whether it is about the book or whether it's about anything else your heart desires to know about. If I can answer it, I will. As I see no questions in there at the moment, let's go ahead and continue on with Chapter 9. Robo entered the lobby, almost completing the entire team, including the camera and production crew, which was only 3 people for this shoot and which would make Billy crazy inside. "Where's the boss man?" he asked, looking behind him. "I was just with him." No one knew, and after Rink shrugged her shoulders, she asked Robo, "What's up with your eyes?" "I don't know. Maybe pollen. They're getting puffier and puffier." "Did you eat something you're allergic to?" Gable asked. "No, I didn't. Maybe I'm allergic to you." "Maybe," Gable replied and shrugged himself. "I'm just kidding around, man. You look nice today." Gable wore a green button-down and green slacks. They might have been ironed. He put his hand to his shirt and smiled. "It's like you're wearing garanimals," Robo said. "I know how to match my clothing, thank you." "Dude, I never said you didn't. Don't get so defensive." "I repeat, as I have before, I could care less about fashion." "Don't be a baby, man." Harrison looked up from his phone. "Let's just all get along and get through this town hall." "Right. Let's get on with this town hall," Robo commented and looked around the lobby, then rubbed his belly. He couldn't just get along without one more, though. "Let's leave fashion to Harris. He's the sharpest dressed man in this motel." "Leave him out of your little squabbles, Robo." Billy appeared and must have heard part of the conversation. "Okay, children, listen. Flo says that we are a go to have the town hall here. Tonight. Word spreading like wildfire. Gable, maps? Check. Rink, pens? Check." The camera crew said they'd be set up in less than an hour, just enough time to eat dinner, and that's where they headed next. "Robo, pa's $1. "Good, I'm starving." The meeting room filled quickly and included the 2 officers from earlier still in their uniforms, several families, one older woman with a gray, tight hairdo who looked like she might have several cats. Maybe it was the flowered vintage 1970s dress that gave it away. Several youngsters with different items for autographs, a man in dark-rimmed glasses who looked as though he might have driven straight from an office, and other assorted witnesses and kibitzers. The on-site producer introduced the team, which received a standing ovation. 2 middle-aged women screamed they loved Robo, who appeared to be correct in the assessment of his own standing. Billy introduced each member of the team, and included Harrison, who he said was there to observe at this point, since he really didn't know what the man's role was. He went on to explain their mission. "How many people here have seen a Bigfoot?" Billy asked. Well, more than half the attendees in the large room raised a hand. "Wow," Billy said. "I think that's the most we've ever had." A man and his family seemed compelling. He and his wife were driving Highway 68 and saw a Bigfoot crossing the road. The location was near Tom Woods' place. Billy looked around the room for Tom, who wasn't present. One non-compelling bearded man wearing a Bigfoot shirt and jeans told his tale of a night investigation with one of his friends. A local news reporter from the Advocate newspaper revealed he had been compiling a list of all the Bigfoot sightings in the area and that he would share that with Billy. He also claimed that 2 of the witnesses had gotten such a good look that they were able to describe the Bigfoot's yellow eyes. The compilation was good news, even if it did indicate that the differing eye color might indicate more than one Bigfoot prowled these foothills. And the Johnsons were in attendance. Jay sat to Martin Johnson's right, and little Lacey sat between her parents. Jenny was no longer wearing her Fight Cancer shirt and instead wore an orange dress. Hunters would have no problem mistaking her for worthwhile game. Jace was winding his fingers in and out of each other and swinging his feet, except when one of the witnesses recounted a sighting, and during those moments he leaned forward with wide eyes and a wondering expression of excitement. He would never forget his family's encounter. Martin stood and told the entire story of the Bigfoot crossing the stream leading to the falls. He told about how he and his father came to the falls on Wednesdays. He told about his children's screams and explained how the creature could not have been a bear. He told about the tremendous howl they had heard before they practically ran down the mountain and back to their car. His experience was the highlight of the evening. Well, his story and the story told by the officers. The police officers, some of the most credible witnesses worked in law enforcement, told their story next. Interesting in itself, but when the sheriff's deputies heard their radios sound, the situation went next level. Each of the witnesses were taking turns walking to the maps to draw a small X where they had sighted Bigfoot. The deputies interrupted. "We've got to go, Billy," one said. We've got your information. Thanks for coming. Hope it's not serious." "It might be. We've had a Bigfoot sighting." Robo walked in their direction. "Can we come?" Robo asked. "Come on." "Robo, let's go," Billy said. "Rink, Gable, take care of things here." "Petra needs to come too," Robo said. "Camera." Petra, with her short-cropped, almond-colored hair, tight t-shirt, and bell-bottom jeans, was the second live camera person on the crew, and was more of an intern. A young African-American woman with high cheekbones and skin the color of milk chocolate. In a word, she was wonderful, and a wonderful accident provided by Edwards providing a skeleton crew. What she lacked in experience, though, she was making up for in creativity and talent, already evident in her prep work. With 2 cameras having been mounted in the lead SUV and a live camera shot, there would be plenty of video if this sighting proved fruitful. "You're with us, Petra." They ran for the parking lot. "Follow us," one of the deputies said over his shoulder. "Drive as fast as you like," Billy said. "I'll try to keep up." The driving scene seemed as though it would prove exciting. The trio of vehicles careened out of the parking lot and down the steep hill toward Highway 68. They broke the speed limit. Just a little. Onto the state highway, the SUV leaned hard left. The camera shots bounced wildly, and in the distance the blue lights could be seen easily, and the whine of the sirens lifted the team's adrenaline. As they approached the location, the officers cut the lights and sirens and slowed to a crawl. Night had almost fallen. They were looking for Bigfoot. What do you guys think? Are they gonna find themselves a Bigfoot? Do we think Bigfoot is out there in the Tennessee hills? You never know. We do have the book called Bigfoot Found. I suppose that might mean a Bigfoot might be there. You never know. I guess we'll find out. Let's see. Any questions from anybody out there? No, I don't see them. I don't see them. Oh no. With no questions on the horizon, we will continue our reading. Take a little drink here. And we will continue our reading as we move into Chapter 10. Billy noticed as he had turned east onto Highway 68, the sunset sky did not have brilliant pink and crimson hues, nor wispy clouds and fading blues. No, the evening was gray, and the humidity brought about a sheen of beaded water anywhere the air conditioner struck the window. When the lead police vehicles extinguished their blue lights and slowed to turn onto a dirt road covered in low-hanging trees that reached down like skeletal fingers to clutch at intruders, he lowered his window and was met with a blast of thick air and the sound of cicadas and crunching gravel. At the second turn on the path, for it was nothing more than a path with a rustling and crumbling fence on one side and a drop-off toward a creek and a field on the other, all three vehicles stopped and tried to park in a wide area. Had any weary, disoriented travelers happened along, they would have found the road essentially blocked. The officers climbed out and walked to a break in the foliage where a tree had fallen and incidentally taken down a section of the already falling fence. The air smelled of fertile soil and evergreen, as well as the faint scent of cologne which must have belonged to one of the deputies, who had not drawn their guns and who did not seem to be in any hurry. Billy, Petra, and Robo, on the other hand, clamored to retrieve equipment, so it was a good thing this seemed to be no emergency. "Did anyone get the night vision equipment?" Billy asked no one in particular. Petra had, of course. They tried to catch up. "Where are we going?" Billy asked the officers as he tried to speak loudly enough to be heard, but not loud enough to reveal their presence. "They'll know an hour before you get here," he thought. "We're gonna walk up the edge of the big field here," said one. "This is the Robinsons. We've been here." The officers led the way, through another break in the fence, scaling down an embankment and into the field which they began to traverse. The grass grew higher here, and they high-stepped over thorns and cockleburs that grabbed them anyway, amid the Indian grass and around sapling elms. The cicadas sang back and forth behind them. Stopping below a chestnut tree, they stood and watched the emptiness. Petra was filming. "Lots of food supply here," Robo whispered, trying to catch his breath. "These nuts, water supply. Got to be deer everywhere." "These are chestnuts," Billy replied. "How would they even eat them?" "I was thinking the deer eat them, but I guess a Bigfoot would just pop 'em in his mouth if he wanted a snack." "How would they break them?" Billy asked. "You don't know they eat." Billy thought again and tried to make Edward's voice vanish from his thoughts. "It's Bigfoot," Robo said. He had regained his breath and his voice. "He'd just squeeze them open, probably." "They're bitter, Robes." "Maybe it doesn't taste bitter to them." "Billy, it's Ed. You don't know what they like." "Just get all this on camera," Billy said, anxious to turn the conversation. "We can edit what we need to." "I don't see anything," the officer said to the other, who was as quiet as a spider. "Said it was standing by that fence over there." The fence leaned over the edge of the field, empty as a drum, except for a few random shoots of Dallas grass. They walked back to the vehicles and followed the dirt path into the woods. Darkness overtook them before they arrived and increased Billy's apprehension more than a little. The house, sitting in disrepair, looked like Billy might have expected. Paint could be seen peeling around the dim porch light. Grass had grown high around a rusting red Impala. An old steel can that looked like it might be used for burning rubbish sat to the right. Garbage littered the yard. Yellow Prestone jugs, an empty cereal box, an aluminum pie pan, an empty green soda bottle, the pieces of a cardboard package torn into several other pieces, probably by a dog even though one had not met them in the yard, a once white chair on its side and missing a leg, pieces of what might have been a piano that looked as though it had exploded. The smell of grease surrounded them as if someone inside might have been cooking hash browns. As they approached, a 30-something man with stubble and an oil-stained face emerged and walked in their direction. He looked as though he had climbed from under a car. His blue jeans were stained thoroughly, and his shirt was wrinkled and creased like someone had tried to stop him from going to the yard to greet them. He didn't offer to shake anyone's hand, and that was just as well, because his hands looked as dirty as his clothing, and his fingernails were black and filled with what might have been oil. "Mr. Robinson," one of the deputies said, raising his hand somewhat as a greeting. "He walked off after we called," the man said. "He been around the house this week, usually at night. We thought we had a prowler." That was one brave prowler, Billy thought. "What did he look like?" the deputy asked. "Weren't a he," the man replied. "I could see its boobies." The man laughed to reveal missing teeth. Everyone else looked to each other. "Why'd you think it was a prowler?" the other deputy asked. "We heard him walking round outside, on the porch and by the windows. My littlest Sally woke up, said she was looking in the window." "She get a good look at it? Is she old enough to provide a description?" "She can't do that at all," the man said, awkward, as though it might be hiding something definitely suspicious. "She ain't but 7. "Want us to put an extra patrol on the house?" the deputy asked. "Nah, I just thought you'uns might see him too," the man said. "Ain't nothing to see here, though." Even though the man had initiated the call, by all indications it didn't seem as though he wanted them in the yard any more than they wanted to be there. The deputies left the conversation at that and retreated to the vehicles. The night bugs sang in the trees, and some night birds squawked somewhere deep in the woods. They stood around the vehicles before they left. "So, you been out here before?" Billy asked. "We have. Not the nicest neighborhood, huh?" "I would think not." "Don doesn't want us in there," the deputy continued, smiling a knowing smile. "He's not worried about Bigfoot. He is worried about a prowler." Billy looked confused. The officer looked at Petra, who was filming, and she took her cue to stop. "He's got things inside worth burgling," he continued. A light bulb went off for Billy. "I see. Let's depart. You guys be safe. If you need anything, please let us know. This is all really exciting, and I mean that." The deputies loaded quickly as Billy and the gang tarried to follow them out. "Crazy," Robo said. "You believe him?" Billy asked. Petra and Robo shook their heads. Too many things didn't add up. Then a sound. Low at first before rising to a high howl that might remind someone of a mournful cry of longing. Long and loud in the night, behind the house and echoing over the foothills. Billy froze, chilled. "Petra, I turned off the camera when the officer was talking about illicit activity," she said, her mouth open, incredulous she had missed the opportunity. "You did hear it, then?" Robo and Petra nodded. "That wasn't a coyote. Or a wolf, if they even have them in Tennessee," Billy whispered as he waited, hoping for another howl. Goosebumps climbed over his arms and up his back. Petra had quickly recovered and begun filming once more. "It sounded pretty far away," Robo whispered. Billy was nodding, his eyes turning somewhat as he trained his ears into the distance. "With these hills, the sound could travel pretty far." A few moments passed, during which time the lights to the porch and then the lights inside the house disappeared, and afterward Billy was certain he heard footsteps coming from the direction of the house, and then the sound of footfalls emanating from somewhere in the backyard, and then into the darkness of the neighboring woods. The trio waited as long as they dared, unwilling to do a Bigfoot call in return, and finally climbed into their SUV to escape. Funny, they now believed Don Robinson. So, in the rural area of Tennessee, Are we to understand that they might be making illicit things? Say it isn't so. Please know this is not an indication of what actually happens in Tennessee, as your narrator has never been there, and so could not actually speak to what might be happening. We'll take the author's word for it. And besides, it's fiction. Fiction is allowed to be whatever it wants to be. All right, checking through the various feeds, I don't see any questions from anybody out there. As a reminder, if you do have questions, feel free to ask on whatever channel you happen to be on, or if you want me to see them right away, do it on the YouTube channel. Easiest way for me to see it, it's the main one that I monitor, youtube.com/@SirArminius. But I will find it probably one way or the other, and because we are recording, I will answer them in between chapters. And if you haven't done so already, please help support the channel by subscribing to the YouTube channel. I would appreciate it. All right, everyone, let's dive right back in, shall we? With Chapter 11. It seemed like Billy was always paired with Robo. Not like Sweet and Salty, and certainly not like twins. Rather, Billy might have said that he and Robo went together like Bounce and a baby. It wasn't just that they were good friends. They were, and had been together when each of their significant others jumped the fence in search of greener pastures, and when each lost their last parent. Considerations almost always centered around Gable, though. If Gable went one place, he might offend someone. If Gable went with this person, they might end up arguing or causing undue tension on the shoot. If Gable went with someone else, she or he might be forced to tell what a jerk he really was. That one was Rink, and she bit her tongue better than anyone. If Gable had not been in the picture, it seemed production would have been much smoother, and Billy questioned himself again and struggled to justify his thoughts that the audience craved a villain. Billy didn't like Gable any more than those polled. Billy and Robo were a pair again today, and they would travel to Mrs. Bennet's house to hopefully capture on camera an interview like the one that took place earlier. Meanwhile, Rink, Gable, and Harrison would visit with the Martins at Bald River Falls, where they could recreate the encounter in their own words. The shots could be reenacted somewhat, and CG inserted to simulate what the Bigfoot would have looked like and how it appeared as it strode on the rocks. They would be able to walk up to the bend in the river and get a height estimate. It would be most interesting to learn what questions Rink would ask and hear her opinion on the matter. Billy drove toward Mrs. Bennet's home with Robo and the second camera person, a 30-something slouching veteran of the Bigfoot hunt, Grant Easel, who had been with the team since day one after graduating from college with videography training and who was obviously not suited in front of the camera, with crooked hair that refused to lay, tiny teeth, and tremendous gums, and a most unathletic appearance that was soft, white, and unremarkable, save for the occasional straggling sprout of hair on a mole. Mrs. Bennet's home sat at the base of the mountain on the brink of federally owned and protected land and right across the street from her estranged neighbor, Joan, who ambled out onto her porch under the pretense of watering a hanging flower plant as the team unloaded equipment. Another younger woman, presumably her floozy daughter, followed her and watched also. At least they weren't blocking the ham. But the convocation had demanded the parking of vehicles on both sides of the tiny unpaved road. A gray Lexus and a white minivan sat alongside Mrs. Bennet's partially covered gray Caprice near the drive. Mrs. Bennet emerged next, carrying her apricot-colored poodle, Savannah, and she walked to the edge of the porch where she stopped and smiled. "Could you find a parking spot?" Mrs. Bennet asked much louder than she had spoken in their last meeting, which might have been an attempt at speaking indirectly to her neighbor and possibly interrupting her streak of exclusion. "We did," said Billy, smiling and waving his hand. Robo followed with a tremendous grin that seeped into Mrs. Bennet's heart, which she covered with her left hand beside Savannah's snout. The dog had begun to emit a low rumbling sound that resembled a beehive. "I have sweet tea and coffee," she said. "We're good, at least right now, but we may take you up on that offer before we leave." The comment pleased Mrs. Bennet as she retreated and allowed Grant to walk up onto the porch where he sat his easel and camera before readjusting a large green bag hanging from his shoulder. Robo stood at the foot of the stairs, maybe considering the woman's warning of the Bigfoot falling through, as Billy came and shook the lady's hand before patting her shoulder. Maybe let the camera roll?" Billy suggested in a soft aside to Grant, who moved and began that process. It might be useful." It was an understood comment by now, and had proven worthy over the years in cases of stage fright. And so Mrs. Bennet began to recount the story once more, embellishing somewhat it seemed, as though the story had coalesced in her mind to include her most inner thoughts and insecurities, yet certainties that a Bigfoot had shown an interest in learning all about a little old lady in the foothills of the Cherokee National Forest. In time, Robo walked to the porch and peered inside. No, he had to stoop. He was taller. No, he was wider than you. At least this much. Savannah grumbled and kept a wary eye on the suspicious investigators. Only once did Billy try to stroke her tight curls, and he was rewarded with a small snarl followed by a sharp rebuke and a whine. Gold. Mrs. Bennet managed to use the phrase mule-eating briars through a barbed wire fence, as well as tight as Dick's hatband, and never once paused to smile as if this was what she uttered on a daily basis. More than likely the case, albeit only to her companion Savannah and possibly her daughter Angela, who had made her way onto the porch and stayed in the background, maybe embarrassed by her mother, though it was impossible to tell. But so curious, she couldn't resist watching from outside. And before Grant finished filming, letting it run as Billy had said, and before Billy put a wrap on the filming, Mrs. Bennet continued, out of the blue, and with a twinkle in her own fading eyes and a wrinkle of the skin around her mouth that she began to smile. "I saw 'em again," she said in an almost hypnotic, childlike voice, as soft as the sound of paper sliding over paper, like waves on a peaceful beach. "Oh, wait, what?" Billy asked, and instinctively looked at Grant to be certain the camera was filming. "Yeah, really." "Tell me," Billy said, leaning in, a fellow conspirator unsure of his own expression. "I was watching in the window," she began. "Right there." She pointed to the pane Robo had noticed, looking out over the pasture and through the woods. "He walked toward me and stopped, looked me dead in the eye." She let the image sit before continuing. "I didn't panic or run this time. Don't need to no more. I'm not afraid." "What happened then?" "He turned and walked away," she said, finally averting her gaze and looking back to the pasture in a gesture that might have indicated she wanted him to be there. Return, let her see him once more. "I reckon he'll be back." Billy did not know what to say. He looked to Robo, who wore his wry grin as usual. He looked to Grant, who wondered if he should cut off the camera and had decided to continue rolling, just in case. He looked to Angela, who stood, a stoic sentinel of Mrs. Bennet's kingdom. "Mrs. Bennet, your interview has been delightful. You'll receive some papers in the mail, just to clear up the airing of the interview," Billy said as he looked to Angela, who nodded. The researchers began to walk to their SUV, and Angela arrived as if she might help them load their equipment. "Billy, can I speak with you?" "Certainly," Billy said and stepped away. "My mother," she began. She's not really all there. How so? She's. She has, she has onset dementia and Alzheimer's. She seems to be with it to me. I know she does. That's why this is so frightening. She's not, though. I couldn't tell, really. I mean, she's older, but I just don't want her to be made fun of, Angela said, this time even more serious, tears welling in her eyes as she looked back to the house to make certain her mother could not see. Angela, I would never do that. You have my word. The woman seemed to consider the comment. I'll look over the papers when they arrive, she said. Thank you. Don't worry about your mother. She's so wonderful. The vehicle rolled toward Sweetwater. What did Angela say? Robo asked. Billy turned to stare out the window at the foliage flying by at 55 miles an hour. Concern for her mother. The comment seemed to satisfy Robo, who nodded and gazed out his window. Harrison had nodded off, his head slumped over on his own shoulder in the back seat. You believe Mrs. Bennet? Robo asked. I don't know. I think I do, Billy said. I just don't know, though. Robes, I just don't know. What about you guys? Do you believe Mrs. Bennet? Is her daughter just saying the Alzheimer's thing, the dementia thing, because she wants her mother to seem a little bit less credible? Do you guys think that could be a possibility? I suppose it could. I guess we will never really know for sure. Well, hello everyone out there. Glad to have you guys here with me tonight as we continue our reading of Bigfoot Found by Tim D. Smith. The book is, of course, available for you to purchase if you so desire. The link to the author's website is right through that QR code that you see on your screens. All proceeds, of course, go to the author. I do this for free, which is why it's always important for me that you stop by and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. It helps to support the work that I do. I hope you guys are enjoying so far, but if you did want to read along or read some of the other things that Tim Smith has written, you can stop out to his website, and there is quite a few different things on there that you can check out. But as I see, no questions, no comments, the peanut gallery is silent tonight. With that being the case, we will continue on and start ourselves into Chapter 12. The Tellico River flows from the Blue Ridge Mountains down to the Little Tennessee River. Near Tellico Plains, its beauty is unsurpassed. Travelers follow the river approaching Bald River Falls on a paved ancient logging road amid the ghosts of the Cherokee people who were native to the area before expulsion. Boulders protrude from the swirling rapids, creating eddies and overlook smooth gatherings of stones. Fishermen wade to cast flies into still pools and might see trout lilies, Dutchman's britches, toothworts, squirrelcorn, and giant chickweed. They might also spot a Bigfoot. At least that was according to Gable, who had been researching the area and now stood outside the Johnson's minivan. Petra was filming while Harrison, Rink, and the family watched. The roar of the falls could be heard here in the parking lot, and a fine mist floated out to the vehicles, dropping the temperature by at least 20 degrees. Let's walk up to the top and recreate the encounter, Gable suggested. Martin agreed, but the whole family was not on the same page. Mommy, I don't want to go, Lacey said as she squeezed to her mother's side. Honey, it's filming. You don't have to be afraid." "I don't ever want to go up there again." Gable knelt down and looked the little girl in the eye. "We won't let anything happen to you," the researcher told her. Lacey paused only a moment before pulling her mother around to garner her full attention. "Don't make me go," she whispered in an urgent tone of panic. "We can't go," her mother decided, as if some telepathic power had enabled her to realize a dangerous situation. We need to recreate what happened," Gable coaxed. "Maybe you can do it some other way or place," Martin said as he walked between Gable and the girls. "It'll just have to be this way." "Mr. Marks," Jenny began, "she hasn't slept well since, that day. She doesn't eat. She can't go up there. I'm sorry." "Very well," Gable said. "Let's the rest of us go on up." "I'll go," Chase told his father. "I'm not afraid." "He's likely not to be at the same place," Gable said. "We haven't seen that happen very often in our studies." "I'm not afraid of him," Chase said. "That's good. You and your dad lead the way." The group trudged up the hill with Petra managing to lug most of the load and still film every step of the way. Rink and Gable followed behind as they climbed. "She's really serious, Gable," Rink said, able to hike and climb at any speed and speak as though she were sitting at a dinner table. Gable's conditioning was another matter. "Children are afraid sometimes. There's no telling what the parents have been saying. The story's been all over town, too." "No, I don't think it's that. I'm skeptical. You know that. She's certain she saw something out of the ordinary." Whether Gable believed or not was impossible to tell. He was struggling. Past the top of the falls, the roaring of the water quieted, enough so that the shoot could be done comfortably without extra microphones. Mr. Johnson was a natural. He spoke well and with ease. He needed no notes or second takes. He told his story. Rink studied him and Chase without speaking. "Could it have been a bear?" Rink asked him. "No," Martin said. "Bears don't walk like that guy. My father and I were hiking in the Smokies when I was small. A bear met us on the path. We stepped off about 3 feet, and the bear stepped off on the other side. We passed each other. It was surreal. Bears don't walk like what we saw, nor near as big either." Rink went to the rocky area of the river where the sighting occurred and held her hand up for height. Almost 8 feet. You said something else," Gable asked Martin. The shoot was almost complete, and he never expected the performance he was about to witness. "You heard it afterward." "Yes." "Loud?" "Oh, yes. He was still close," Martin said. "I can make the sound." "Oh, really? Okay. A call?" I guess it's a call. It scares Lacey, so I don't do it now when she's around." Gable looked to Petra, making certain the camera was rolling. Of course it was. Gable nodded to Martin, who cupped his hands around his mouth and breathed deeply. "Oh, oh, ooh, oh." "Oh my," Gable said. Everyone smiled. "Okay, Rink, should we ask any more questions or anything?" Rink shook her head, and everyone relaxed. Petra stood up straight. "Let's pack it in." As Petra began loading the camera, the highlight of the trip was mist. From somewhere deep in the hills, over the faint sound of water, clear and distinct. "Ah, ah, ooh." Everyone froze. Rig, you heard it, Gable whispered as loudly as he dared, even though the sound had seemingly come from far away, and the fall still hissed in the background. Rink could only nod as her mouth hung open. Her eyes were giant orbs, her arms and hands frozen in midair, freeze frame. Petra looked crestfallen. How could Rink ever explain away this one? So, I gotta ask you guys, does anybody think that the voice that I do for Gable sounds familiar to you? I do pattern it off of somebody, and I'm wondering if anybody hears it and recognizes where that voice may be from. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? I will tell you. The voice that I do for Gable is patterned after George Takei. And so I could not believe it when I was just reading this, and I had the opportunity to, in Gable's voice, say, "Oh my." Ah, it made me smile at least. The little things that make a voice actor happy. Oh my. Yes, everyone. Yes. I had the opportunity to use my George Takei voice and actually say, "Oh my." Ah, gotta love it. All right. I looked through. I didn't see any questions from anyone out there, so we will continue on. And we will continue to read our book, Bigfoot Found by Tim Smith. Kicking off with, come on, Chapter 13. I know I heard something, Rink said. I need hard proof, though. It could have been people hiking, answering back. It sounded exactly like Martin's call. The team sat at a round table beside a window facing the interior rooms of the motel across a courtyard and an open veranda with a pool where two children splashed and played in some imaginary world of contained, chlorinated water as their oblivious mother sunned in a lounger. The sun had not dipped below the level of the second floor of the motel, but it would in less than 3 hours. You heard it. Is that not proof? Gable asked. I heard something. Rink, this is the expedition that will change your mind, Robo said as he ate a piece of Flo's cheesecake. Not the pie, and by the look on his face, he didn't care if it was $1 or 10. Still with a mouthful, he added, Too much smoke for there to be no fire. Did everyone sleep? Billy asked, trying to change the subject. He wondered why the entire crew was on edge, and then he glanced at Harrison before turning his attention back to the remainder of the group, hopefully in search of some other answer. Like a baby, Robo said, looking to the others who may not have fared as well. Gable turned up his nose and made a face. Rink shook her head, while Harrison didn't indicate one way or the other. Petra smiled. After everyone finished eating, Billy produced a big map and spread it across the table like a general who has devised a plan to invade a hostile country. Mrs. Bennet's house and pasture was the battlefield marked with an X. Bring down that wall. Rink and I will walk toward the forest and up these big mountain here to overlook the scene, Billy said, knowing full well they would first get a camera shot in Mrs. Bennet's drive of the team discussing plans. We'll take Grant. You guys are going to the other side of the valley. Robes, you got that laser pointer? Don't leave home without it. Think it will reach our location? One way to find out. Mrs. Bennet and Savannah were cutting limbs from a tree beside the yard in the midst of the still balmy late afternoon when the investigators arrived. Joan and her daughter sat in their side yard, watching. Savannah barked once and begged to be lifted off the ground, where she walked as if her paws were wet. Of course, Mrs. Bennet obliged. "Hello, Mrs. Bennet," Billy said as they began to unload. "My friends," Billy continued, motioning to the crew as if he held a prize-winning cake in his palm. "Here to see the Bigfoot." Mrs. Bennet smiled, making certain to do her best and irritate her neighbors. "Here to film Bigfoot, hopefully," Robo said. He had his supplies. His hat, what was in his pockets, which was probably a bottle of water and his laser pointer, and a crooked walking stick that looked to be more for appearances than use. Mrs. Bennet made her way slowly to the rear of the vehicle where a considerable pile of equipment was forming, and she eyed the women watching from across the dirt path and shook her head in disdain. "Worthless as teats on a boar hog," she muttered. Billy raised his eyebrows as Robo chuckled. Ever the peacemaker, Rink tried to move the conversation to a better place. "We'll be late returning, Mrs. Bennet. You rest up. We'll let you know our results." With her filming and obligations met, and with the personal satisfaction that a television crew and celebrities were not at Joan's house, Mrs. Bennet waddled inside, content to watch the show's progress from her window. After the obligatory filming of preparation, Gable's group set off in the opposite direction from Billy and Rink. The evening's investigation was underway. "What is this crap that gets on your pant legs?" Harrison asked. He had wandered off the trail a bit and now had sticky cockleburs on both legs. "That Xanthum strabarium," Gable announced. "The common cocklebur. The Bigfoot probably has them all over his fur." "He'd probably pick 'em off," Robo said. "Nothing much else to do. Watch his hygiene." "All over my pants," Harrison said, picking mightily as the others high-stepped toward the valley. "We might never get close enough to see that detail," Gable said to Robo. But o'er the heavens. He had found a narrow path leading to more trees and was walking more freely. "Says you," Robo said. Each of the team members had cameras mounted to their heads. The night vision would come in handy soon. The night bugs had begun to sing in unison, like a fading lamppost in a quiet city parking lot. "Wonder what Mr. Bigfoot does for entertainment," Harrison joked. "Catch a movie?" "Might be a Mrs. Bigfoot," Robo said. "Might look for Mr. Bigfoot. In the wild, you know. That's what people used to do before the internet." "Maybe he'd watch me," Harrison said, steering the conversation into his area. "You been in one of those movies on the internet?" Robo asked. "I know what you're saying, and no. It was a Hollywood movie." "What movie?" Gable asked. "Maybe we've seen it then." "Flamethrower," Harrison answered. "It was a speaking part." "Well, good for you," Gable said. The conversation might have ended there as they trudged along as night fell, had Harrison not continued. "I was a guy trying to rescue a girl from a maniac." "With a flamethrower?" Robo asked. "No, he had a machete." "He was asking if you had a flamethrower," Gable said. "No, but we might need one out here." The trail wasn't bad at all now, and in fact wound around a grove of trees as if it had been designed by a lethargic parks and recreation worker. Out of boredom or curiosity, no one knew. Gable needed to know the outcome of Harrison's situation with the machete-wielding maniac. "You save her?" Gable asked. "No, I died." "That's too bad." Pure sarcasm, but pointed anyway. Gable had a way of striking a raw nerve. No one cared what he thought. one way or the other, but yet his indifference was aggravating. Then it happened. Petra thought initially that Harrison was performing some type of ridiculous graceful leap, like a dancer in a ballet crossing the stage, accompanied by a tiny squawk that sounded like surprise. He dipped and dabbed with his arms in a twisting move not unlike an awkward dive into a pool, and when he hit the ground, he did not roll, but rather skidded to a stop with a grunt like an unskilled boxer as all the air in his lungs made an exit. Petra giggled, the camera bouncing uncontrollably. Gable and Robo stopped and watched him climb to his feet. Neither of them spoke or showed much reaction at first. Glad it wasn't them. It had been before. Harrison seemed to check out his extremities, which were still intact, as he dusted himself off. "This goes from bad to worse," Harrison muttered. "Did you get it?" Gable asked. Petra, who was shaking with quiet laughter, a failed attempt at not making light of the fall, nodded and said, "I did. I got it all." "You're the outsider, right?" Gable prodded. "Beat the locals. Be an objective skeptic." It's, well, at least give me a heads up when there are obstructions," Harrison said, trying to save face. The fall had stolen Harrison's burgeoning confidence and enthusiasm, and as they searched and waited for a Bigfoot, he remained silent. Soon they sat for a while, then radioed Billy before making a call, which neither Billy nor Rink could hear. The night was quiet. They were alone. Billy and Rink had hiked to the apex of a high ridge, then along the top, following what might have been a deer trail, able to see the sloping hillside and a valley below. The glow of a town sat in the distance, but otherwise not a single light was visible. The night had grown long, and they had literally nothing to show for the night's investigation. They, too, decided to sit and rest, and for once, listen, even if it was to nothing. The team extinguished all of the equipment. Maybe the electronics had something to do with Bigfoot's absence. Grant found a tree to lean against and closed his eyes. Within moments, his soft snores leaked out into the stillness. Billy and Rink smiled to each other. "Nothing on the night vision. No sounds, no cicadas or frogs, no breeze ruffling the trees, no traffic in the distance, no gurgling water," Billy whispered to Rink as they sat on the open ridge to watch the vast expanse below them. Rink shrugged her shoulders. "Maybe that's it," Billy continued. "What?" "Something is here, and we don't see it or hear it. The creatures know, though." Rink raised her eyebrows, then pursed her lips like she was sucking on a gumdrop. She readjusted and turned to Billy. "We're co-workers," she began. "More like you're my boss, I guess." "No hierarchy exists. You know that." "Well, you get the team together. Really, we work by your favor." "If that was the case, our team wouldn't look exactly like it does." "Okay, point taken," Rink interjected. "But we know lots about each other. Can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Does it get any easier?" "Hiking? Waiting? I don't know, probably." "No," she interrupted. "I mean not having that person in your life." "Oh," Billy said. Now he sucked on the gumdrop. "Probably." "That's it? Probably?" "I'll let you know if and when it does," Billy said. "How about that?" That was one of the most indirect answers I've ever heard, and one of the most poignant. The darkness waited. "What about you? You have an answer for that question?" Billy asked. "No. It's why I asked." "I didn't choose my situation. It chose for me." Rink seemed to consider the statement and said nothing. We have to live our lives. Maybe there's something out there I'm supposed to do. Right now, it seems like this is it. I have this overwhelming desire to find out the truth about Bigfoot. It's all I think about. I have to know. But when will you know? Or realize or decide that it's been long enough, if you don't ever find proof? I'll let you know, Billy said. Again, one of those pauses, but it didn't seem awkward or forced. It just was. There are times when I think I still love him. Most of the time I'm simply angry, Rink said, and this time she could have just as easily been informing the night of her thoughts, speaking to herself, trying to make sense in her mind. But as long as I wait, I know one thing. I could wait 1,000 years, and he still would not love me. Not really. Billy didn't look at Rink, but said, I'm sorry. She didn't respond and instead moved the dry grass around between her feet as if she might start a fire that would burn the hurt out of her heart. When they had waited as long as they could manage, they began the long walk back to Mrs. Bennet's house. The sun would rise soon. Another day of searching and not finding would begin. Another day of longing. Remember, if you were enjoying this program, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. That's right, everyone. If you are enjoying it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius. Excuse me. It is what I do. Because I like it. I really like it. Oh, yeah. All right, let's see if there are any thoughts or questions about the book or about what I do. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I don't know what to tell you guys. I just am me. I am the way I am. I am what I am. All right, guys. It is 9:16. We should have enough time for another chapter or two. I do this reading for about an hour and a half or so, hour and a half to 2 hours. So let's see how long chapter 14 is as we get ready, get set, and we. Well, I'm glad I didn't start before that. We begin with chapter 14. We didn't try the laser pointer, Robo said, flat, monotone, almost deflated, much like the leather-colored skin on his face, drooping and sagging like a day-old birthday balloon, as Billy's group arrived back at the vehicles. The sun's rays peeked over the hilltops, but only a gray pallor filled the remaining dark creases of the dying night. No. Sorry, Robes. You guys see anything? Everyone shook their heads. Downturned lips, drooping shoulders. Would there ever be a time of discovery? Even though the investigation had so much promise, the team might leave empty-handed once again. What would Ed think? Harrison had a good night, though, Gable said. Billy's face said he wasn't sure whether he should smile or be worried about dealing with a hostile workplace lawsuit. Petra got it on camera, Rink said. She had stowed her backpack and equipment in the SUV. Petra flipped open a small viewer on her camera and soon located the fall. Harrison looked even less graceful than she remembered, and he had begun to laugh about the incident now. Soon even Gable was holding his side. Maybe Harrison would make it after all. But Petra wasn't smiling. She had a sharp eye, and she withdrew the camera and went to sit on the open bumper of the vehicle. While Billy began to corral the crew, she walked over to their gathering. Ready to go?" Billy prodded. "No, I think you need to see this," Petra said. Billy looked over her shoulder. "I saw it. It's humorous. We probably—" "No, look," she said more emphatically. Grant had appeared at her side. "What?" Billy asked. He honestly saw nothing but Harrison's swan ballet. "I saw a flash of some kind," she said once more. She froze the frame. "Right here." Sure enough, a spot that might have been one smooth ball of turquoise sat in the background of the image, beside Harrison's splayed hand and 5 fingers, about the size of his palm. His elbow pointed behind him like a sign pointing in the direction of Tellico. "It's a spot on the image," Billy said. The recreation of images was often not very good in the videos. "Not here," she said, and wound the video a split second. The image caused Billy to retrieve his glasses for a better look at what appeared to be locks of hair, the color of crimson, on what appeared to be a very large forearm. "Oh, what do you think it is?" Billy asked her. The others were peering over her shoulder, straining to see the picture. "Honestly, it looks like a hairy arm," she said. "Or a tree trunk," Billy added. "Or the log he fell over." "I thought that too. But it's below and behind him. I looked there first." "So you think—" "I don't know what to think," she said, her eyes rising to meet their stares. Robo, often the least skeptical, became a doubting Thomas. "I didn't smell anything. I've smelled something before. I think a Bigfoot would smell." "I'm just showing you what's on the image. I don't believe things readily. Maybe that hasn't been obvious. All these stories. Now this." They each looked more closely. "You mean he could have been right there all along?" said Harrison. "They make you forget," Billy thought as Tom's image swam into his mind's eye. "No sound," Billy added. "He could have been there." The turquoise eye hung in Billy's thoughts as they drove back to their base for a nap. Whether that nap might happen was the thing. All right, we definitely have time to get ourselves into Chapter 15. Alrighty. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, oh, no, oh, no. Oh, yeah. Let us go ahead and continue. Thank you for all of you for being here with me for whatever channel you might be watching on. Whether it is YouTube, Twitch, X, Kick, Rumble, or TikTok. Thank you for being here with me. Glad to have you. All right, let's dive ourselves in for what will probably be our last chapter of the evening, because we are right about that time. So, let's go ahead with Chapter 15. Billy knocked on Gable's door and then looked around the parking lot and finally to the sky at the cotton ball clouds forming in the hot afternoon. He hadn't checked the weather and made a mental note to do so before they departed, not knowing the conditions had proven almost catastrophic in the past. In the Rocky Mountains above Estes Park, he had gotten caught in whiteout conditions around a hidden lake and almost failed to find his path back to the trailhead. Another time in Georgia, he had been camping when a flash flood made a nearby creek swell in the middle of the night, sending swirling water near his tent, obliterating the path. He spent a full day trying to hike to safety. The memories spun until the door finally opened and Gable began to exit before turning back into the room as if he had forgotten something. It's not like I was coming to get you, but I'm thinking you and I will team up with Harrison and Petra. I'm thinking that cemetery might be interesting, Billy said before stepping inside. Your room's a bigger mess than mine. Maybe the forest behind it, Gable said, seemingly searching around the room. The cemetery would provide another layer of intrigue. Like if we don't find anything? Gable asked. He moved his suitcases to the bed and unzipped one of the pockets. I don't want to go home with nothing, Billy said. Just in case. Take the deputies. What did you put in your vest? Gable stopped for the briefest of an instant, looking in Billy's eyes, and said, My pistol. I always take it. You do not always take it. I do. I did not know that, Billy said. You can't take it. And why not? We're not carrying firearms like we're going on a big game hunt. I don't think this would be the appropriate weapon for Bigfoot, Gable said. You know what I mean. We're not hunting a Bigfoot. Besides, it's not the right message. No one even knows I have it, Gable said, his posture suggesting defense. I do. Besides, you can't have a firearm on federal lands. I have my permit. It's for our protection. You don't have a permit to have it in a national forest. Don't take it. How'd you get on the plane anyway? I have my ways, Gable said. He removed the handgun, probably a 9mm, bigger than could be concealed in one's hand, silver and menacing under the circumstance. Gable waited as if the situation might be resolved on its own. Very well, but if we need it, I don't expect me not to say I told you so. It was another in what was now a string of occurrences that gave Billy pause. He decided he would keep the information to himself, but upon returning something would need to be put in writing to prohibit firearms on the team. That was something he never thought to consider. Maybe he needed to consider many more things. The rest of the team, minus Harrison, was already assembled in the lobby when Billy and Gable arrived, and the actors strolled up as the teams were announced. Rink, Robo, you guys will explore around Tom's place. Lay low. Film quietly. Be serene. Something tells me that might work. Good Lord, Harrison, what is that smell? Pizza and pork rinds, Harrison said with a mouthful. It's awful, Billy said, covering his nose, and I've eaten some pretty nasty stuff in my time. I love the South, he continued, grinning and chewing. I got it from the gas station at the bottom of the hill. They've got boiled peanuts. I'm getting some of them tomorrow. You're in the very back of the van, Gable said. It's isolated. I can't smell that riding all the way out to location. Harrison apparently didn't care where he rode and shrugged his shoulders. Sure enough, with Harrison in the back of the van, neither Billy nor Gable could smell the pungent snack. Petra's demeanor would have prevented her thoughts on the matter from being known anyway. And as they drove, long shadows draped the cemetery as night fell, making for a dark arrival. The deputies, driving plain vehicles and not on duty, were already there. The green hue of the night vision lit up the cemetery for the investigators, each of the headstones still warm from the day's sunlight. Norton Norfleet's stone gleamed white, maybe due to all the shower trysts he had with co-eds at the college where he coached. Argyle Feston's was shaded in black like his heart from the way he treated his employees. The deputies had already recreated seeing the Bigfoot, showing the team where he had stood and where he had departed. Now everyone in the group lingered and sat around a tall mausoleum with a padlock on the door. Inside the cement structure, set a small bench where a surviving loved one might mourn. Sadness rested its chin on an elbow, even though the crypt belonged to miserly Judge Cass, who had shocked the community when he spent his money and bought the plot and the morbid structure before his death. His recluse wife was buried with him. "I think spirits exist," Billy whispered. "Maybe an energy remains when people die, possibly imprinting their image to a location like a picture," Gable replied. "Especially during violent deaths or murder." The deputies were silent and wore borrowed night vision also, scanning the tree line, looking for their suspect. "I agree," Harrison said. "I've seen more than one ghost." "Do tell," Billy said. "My grandmother's house, after my grandfather passed, for one. I also saw a mysterious fog in a cemetery when I was young." "You're still young," Billy told him. "I mean young. When I was a teenager." "Told you kids come into the cemetery," one deputy whispered. "Not always to look for ghosts, though," the other added. "We're a G-rated program, so we'll leave it at that," Billy said. Dew had collected on the grass around the tombstones, and for the first time since they had arrived, a cool breeze ruffled the leaves of the trees and moved air around the cemetery, like some being had tiptoed past. Then, from somewhere far away, the deep rumble of thunder echoed along the hills. When some time passed and they hadn't heard thunder again, Billy had gotten antsy enough to encourage the group to explore. "Let's walk the area and see what we can rustle up. Not ghosts, but maybe a Bigfoot in the area," Billy said. The deputies weren't as confident and decided to cut their losses and avoid the rains. They bid their farewells. "Be careful," Billy said. "Watch for deer." The deputies waved as they left. "What would make you think to say that?" Gable asked. "I heard someone say it in the lobby the other evening." Billy had become local. The officer's intuition had been correct. In half an hour, rain came, steady and persistent, if not heavy. Then thunder rolled again, and the rain increased, bringing with it the smells of the earth. Ponchos on, the group hunkered down to wait. For how long was anyone's guess. At least it wasn't hot now, though some of the trees still held an eerie glow in the night vision. Twice the sound of a twig sounded in the forest, blending in with the steady storm and plinking raindrops. The equipment showed nothing. More than once Billy was certain he heard footfalls, softly and stealthily. They filmed and watched. Another squall moved through, causing them to squat and lay even lower. The trees swayed and popped as the investigators spent most of their night in the uncomfortable setting and waited to escape back to their vehicle. Rink and Robo, on the other hand, must have been in a location shielded from the worst of the storm, and only got 2 small showers. They had driven to Tom's farm, waved to him as he stood on the porch, and walked through his back pasture amongst an audience of cattle. A raccoon scurried away from them, tossing curses in their direction, and in less than 20 minutes they were following the Tellico River, which now had whitecaps as it lapped its banks. The once gentle murmur of the water transformed into a loud but not disagreeable hiss. They climbed a large boulder and sat, while Grant placed a camera on a tripod and soon was dozing once more. Truth be told, Robo liked Rink's company and genuinely enjoyed their conversations, which were gentle, unstressed, and comfortable. He leaned back on his hands. "Why is it so hard for you to believe, Rink?" "Robes, I need proof. It's not that I disbelieve. I just need proof. I'm agnostic, I guess," she said, smiling. "Well, I guess in the Bigfoot faith I'm a believer." "I didn't really mean in any spiritual sense. I'm uncertain is all." "I know. I'm just joking around. What about the picture? The arm or whatever? She asked.
Yeah, the picture from yesterday.
I just can't tell. I always have to have proof for things.
If you have to have proof, what about love? It's something you feel, you know? You have to go on faith.
Robo said. He looked at Rink's face. You get proof in what's not there sometimes, she said. Robo thought about that for a while before he arrived at a comment.
I'm trying to make a comparison to not having a Bigfoot walk right by, and I can't really. I get your point, though. Sometimes you think you see evidence, and it's all smoke and mirrors.
We're experienced, aren't we? She stated, and rocked back and forth until she could find a piece of moss to pick off the rock before looking back up at the raging river. Grant was snoring loud enough for them to hear, and Rink giggled, bringing out a large, gap-toothed smile from Robo.
So, what do you love?
Robo asked. I love my mom, which reminds me, I need to check on her.
I know. Most of us love our mothers. But what about something else?
I love research and trying to add facts together to get an answer.
That's what I'm saying,
Robo told her.
I have enough facts to add together to make Bigfoot real to me.
But I don't.
Maybe that will happen. I hope so. Lots of others will believe if we can convince you,
Robo said. I love most of the camaraderie on our team, Rink added.
I know what you're saying. I do too,
Robo said.
I love Billy like a brother. He's become one of my best friends.
Billy, Rink started and considered her words. He's a good man. He's kind. He's a leader, even if he doesn't want to admit it. He's passionate about what he's doing. He's convinced. I wish I could be convinced about something, anything, like he is. She grew quiet as Robo studied her out of the corner of his eye, but said nothing. Robo was a simple man. At least that's what his now ex-wife had said. But he was good at judging intentions with the perception that came from his mother, who seemed to know what others were thinking without ever hearing them utter a comment about it. It was an intuition as loud as spoken words.
Tom said Bigfoot would know an hour before we were here. He says they know things, maybe read minds, make you forget.
Rink seemed to consider the comment. Tom's a smart man.
You think so? You believe then?
Tom was a veterinarian.
What would make you think that?
His mailbox, she said, smiling. Robo shook his head and smirked. Rink was smart, observant. She was much like Billy.
If Bigfoot was in that picture, he could be right here, near us, right now,
Robo said, and suddenly Rink's confidence and safety were shaken somewhat. Maybe she wasn't convinced totally that Bigfoot could be explained away through faulty sightings or some kind of mass hallucination. She looked around in the darkness and put her night vision on once more to no avail and relaxed somewhat. The night continued to expire. They waited. Bigfoot hid.
All right, everyone. I believe that's gonna do it for our reading tonight. So let me start with thank you. The greatest gift that you can give me is a gift of your time, and I appreciate that you guys gave me the gift of yours this evening. Whether it was for 5 minutes or for the entire stream, thank you so much for being here. As a reminder, if you have not already, stop on out to the YouTube channel and give a little subscribe out there, would you? youtube.com/@SirArmenius.
Okay, that's enough of Robo's voice. The chapters from tonight will be up on the YouTube channel a little bit later this evening, just depending on how long it takes YouTube to get them uploaded. As a reminder as well, if you have not yet, you can support the author, check out more about what Tim D. Smith is up to by scanning the QR codes that you see on your screen. That will take you to the author's website, where you can have some links to buy his books or find out more about him. I will be back again on Saturday, where we will continue Bigfoot Found. We'll be starting into chapter 16 on Saturday. Until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you guys all again really soon. Have a great night, everyone.